Welcome to Not a Real Artist, a podcast by me, Iris Fritschi-Cussens,
and me, Tamara Sagathevan, discussing relatable creative topics with honesty and humour.
Settle in for our first episode with the very original title of Not a Real Artist,
in which we talk about what this means to us, how we deal with impostor syndrome, and which limiting beliefs trip us up.
We hope you enjoy the podcast. Welcome to the first episode of Not a Real Artist. Let's get straight into it. Tamara, you said yes to me asking you to do this podcast. We agreed on this title of Not a Real Artist. So can you tell me what that means to you?
To me, Iris, Not a Real Artist is I think the definition of what I often feel, but what I mostly used to feel. And I think that it's one of the most persistent narratives I see in art groups and between artists and everybody talking. Just people feel they're not real artists. They have all of these qualifiers. And potentially you and I could shed some light on those qualifiers and talk a little bit more about it. So that's why I agreed to it. And that's why I want to do it.
Yeah, and why it fit, right? Because I think also one of those things that happens is that when you are out there doing things like you're doing teaching or like making videos on YouTube, things like that, you kind of put yourself somewhere and you get seen as someone who can do these things and who kind of maybe even has it all figured out. That's maybe how you're perceived. And I feel like that Not a Real Artist, I feel, would appeal to those people who have that feeling of like, oh gosh, well, I'm not a real artist, but also to shed light on the fact that even as doers or content creators or whatever, teachers, we still feel like that too. And, you know, that's been a big part of my narrative. And I just think that's really interesting to talk about and not just make it about, okay, some people feel this and they are the people who haven't really like done much yet. And then there's people who are like making art and stuff like that and they don't feel that. I think like that's kind of a myth I wanted to bust.
I hear you. And the section where you say how you're perceived, I make some YouTube videos and I think some people think I'm an artist. But I don't perceive myself that way sometimes. And I also struggle with it. So I'm echoing what you said, that yes, those that create also feel this way. But I think it's quite interesting that you're talking about perception and that automatically kind of gets my back up a little bit because it leads straight into this thing of impostor syndrome. You're saying how people perceive me and it's like, oh no, don't perceive me that way because I'm a big fraud.
Yeah. And it's like, it's so funny because it's a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, you want people to take you seriously. But then on the other hand, when people do take you seriously, you kind of get this like, oh, no. Let me put in all the qualifiers here why you can't think that of me, because like, really, I'm not a real artist. So to you, like, talk a bit more about imposter syndrome and also like the qualify, like what is a real artist to you? Are you a real artist to yourself, like irrespective of like what you think? I don't know if we can separate it from what other people think. I don't know if that's possible, but yeah, are you a real artist?
I think unfortunately it's not a stable or static answer. I think it really depends on how I feel. When I feel like F the world and I'm the best or whatever, then I am a real artist. I'm the best version of myself. I don't need any qualifiers whatsoever. And then the times when I'm not feeling, when I don't have that mental energy to be so confident, then I'm definitely a big fraud. And to me, imposter syndrome is I feel like deficient and inadequate no matter my actions, my success, my processes. And it's a two-parter. It's that first part. And then the second part is when people do acknowledge my success in some way or form, like, oh, great video, then I feel like anxiety that I'm going to be found out. and shame that, like, once somebody finds out, they're going to think I'm a liar or whatever, and fear of like being punished, like humiliated,
Mm-hmm,
shamed,
mm-hmm.
or ostracized. And that's what it is to me. I don't know. What does it feel like to you?
I find it really interesting what you said about how it changes depending on how you feel, because I hadn't really clocked that. Like, that's so true. And yet I'd never really thought about it. But that's true. Like, sometimes when I'm really into it, I'm like, oh, wow, I'm on fire. I'm like, the question of am I a real artist doesn't even occur to me because I'm just being,
Yeah.
an artist. And then at other times, when you feel inadequate, or when you feel like maybe you're comparing yourself to someone else, and then I'm like, oh my God, who do I think I am? Or also when something I do and have put a lot of time and effort and heart into, and if it then doesn't get the response that I would like, and I'm talking about, sometimes we're talking commercially, but also, if I've created this art and I'm like, this painting is the best painting I've ever done, like that, I genuinely think that to myself, and then I post it on social media and it's like crickets. And that's not necessarily to do with the quality of the art, it might also be to do with algorithms or whatever, but like, and then I feel like, oh my God, am I just like really up myself? Do I think I'm good when really in reality I'm just like shit? um d- d- that can really knock your confidence. So like you say, it's like being a real artist or feeling like a real artist isn't a static thing. So Tamara, I'm curious, what happens when you meet a new person and you shake hands and they say, hi, I'm blah de blah, what do you do? Do you say like, I'm an artist, or
First of all, it's different. Yeah, if the person is trying to assess me, um, well, in the past, my answer would be very different, versus if they were interested in me. So when it was me not doing art full time and it was an assessment, I would say I'm an analyst, which usually shuts people up pretty quickly.
mm,
And if it was interest, I would say I'm an analyst, and this very like tiny voice, and an artist, and that would open up the door and I would get slowly more comfortable. But I hid behind this thing that I'm an analyst. So even though I worked with people, I learned from people who were very adamant that I was an artist. It was difficult to say I had that qualifier. And then I started doing art full time, and I used to tell people that I was unemployed. I'm unemployed, ha ha ha, clown, clown, clown. And people thought it was hilarious, which is obviously, I thrive of people laughing. So that would be my thing. But it was every time I said it, I felt like such a like piece of crap, because I was really denying this piece of myself and I wasn't brave enough to do it. And how it changed is my partner got me a gift, a star certificate. A star's named after me, just so you know.
oh wow.
And like that was cool. And but the part that like touched me and stirred me beyond reason is it said, love of my life, amazing artist, my best friend. Like a feedback sandwich, when you put
Mm.
the crap in the middle. But this
Mhm.
amazing artist thing, just like it really hit me. And I spent so much of time thinking, like, he's not a liar. Yes, he's kind, but he's not a liar. And I'm like, why? Why is it so easy for me to just say I'm unemployed and I'm not an artist? And I realized it was because I felt imposter syndrome. And I don't think I'm answering your question now. Now I think I'm just going like in my whole
No, but
backstory.
so let's talk then about, because this really relates to um the follow-up question, the dreaded follow-up question. When somebody asks you what do you do and you say I'm an artist, and then the dreaded follow-up question that comes almost always straight
Hmm.
away afterwards is, do you make money with it?
Exactly. That was the thing that was preventing me from saying I was an artist, honestly. It was
Yes,
the pay
right?
part. Because when you say you're something, it's an occupation, yeah? And
Right.
that implies you're getting paid. I don't know. When people ask you that question, how do you respond?
I say yes because technically it is true, but I think then it comes back to like, what do other people think is an artist, and what do you think is an artist, and is there a certain payment threshold, like, as in, if I went out and got a job as whatever, like a, like a an entry level job that pays a salary? Do I need to be paid the same amount with my art in order to be allowed to call myself an artist? Do I need to be paid more than that? Do I need to be like, supporting my whole family? It's a really difficult question to answer. And I think in our, like, what do you call it, like when we're talking from our higher selves, I mean, I hate that phrase, but like I don't know how else to say it. If we're really talking from our higher selves, then I think we would all agree that you don't need to be paid in order to be able to call yourself an artist. Like, if I'm being
Yeah.
really kind to myself and really talking from what I think is just true, then I think that money has nothing to do with the validity of someone being an artist. However, just knowing that doesn't take away from this feeling of wishing for some kind of external form of being validated. And money in our society is the
Yeah.
easiest and the most shortcutty way of determining someone's value, even if we don't agree that somebody's worth or value is determined by how much income
Yeah.
they are able to generate. So it's really, really difficult to separate those two.
For me, it was a double thing. It was, first of all, like intellect, intelligence, and education. Like, to me, that was something that was always above money, like in my culture and the way I grew up. And I got over that pretty quickly when I started working, because no offense to anybody that's gone to university or to yourself, but it's a piece of paper that just says you know stuff, right? It's got nothing to do with experience. So I got over that imposter thing when I was working. But the money thing, because as you say, it's a capitalist society, and I'm not trying to go all South African here, but I'm from South Africa. But it was just, how can I be putting this as my kind of title and my, what is it, my label, when it is not valuable in terms of money?
Mm-hmm.
But when I realized that, I thought, my God, I am not spending all my time being unemployed. I'm spending my time working on my art, my
Mm-hmm.
life force, my energy, all of these things is going into my art. And that, as because I'm older now, is infinitely more important to me than money. And it started making me think about, how do I label people? So when somebody says to me, oh, I'm an IT consultant. Okay, lacquer, oh, great. But where does your life force go? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
more interested in that. And that's kind of what changed it around for me. So now I can say, yeah, I'm an artist. And if somebody says to me, how much do you make? I say, I've made 75 US dollars. And just like that, with a smile, and people don't know what to do. And I like
Oh, that's so
throwing people
interesting.
off, but like,
You're
it's just like, but I'm
you're
honest.
because you're basically, you're not being drawn into the conversation that would normally lead from that question. You're basically saying, you're moving it onto a different track. And so, from what you said, so two of the things that I take away from it is, like, value does not equal money. So
No.
the value of what you do does not equal money. And also, where does your life force go? I love that. I love, where does your life force go, because it is so much more of an important question. It isn't how much money can I generate with my labor, or the fruits of my labor. It's, where does my life force go? And isn't that such a great question? And, like, I often like to, when I'm being hard on myself, I often like to do this thought experiment, which is basically, what would I expect of my kids? Like,
Mhm.
my kids don't make money. Does that mean they have no value to me? No, obviously. Like, that's even a ridiculous question to
go
ask.
go to
So,
work, Iris kids. What's wrong with you?
yeah,
Get a
exactly.
job.
Totally. That always kind of stops me when I ask, would it be fair to expect this of the people that I love most in the world? Would this be the thing that I would judge them for, or think they're not doing well enough, or are working hard enough, or whatever that is? But so what you're saying, like, where does your life force go? That's amazing. That is such a good question to be grappling with, rather than How much money did you
Yeah,
make?
I think it's a good question in general when you meet people, because somebody might be working a 9 to 5 in IT, yeah, but they spend the rest of their time, I don't know, creating these things used for fly fishing, random example, but that's where their life force is going. It's not going to sorting out Sandra's computer for the 50th time.
Yeah.
Well, okay, maybe it is, but it's a really good question that I like. And I want to say two things. And the first thing is, when somebody asks me as a form of assessment, and I mean, it's been pandemic, so I haven't met so many people, but I really, in social situations, care that much what people think about me, especially if they're ticking me off. And if somebody asks me as an assessment, I say, I'm a freelance banana peeler, or I'm a part time geologist. Like, I say like weird things, and they get thrown off because they don't know me. And I just think you were trying to assess me, and now you just know that I'm a clown. Like, that's one thing that's true about me. So if anybody asks you that and you're uncomfortable about the money part, either just tell the truth, especially if it's a little money. I think that's awesome. Like when I made my first like Skillshare sale, whatever you
Yeah.
call it, and somebody was like, "Oh, how many people enrolled?" And I was like, "One person."
That's great. So you're basically like you're taking ownership
Yeah,
rather
and I
than
am excited. Yeah, I'm not
yeah.
just doing it to be facetious.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. So you're basically you're taking ownership and you're not playing by the rules, because when somebody asks you something and like you're saying like they're assessing you, then you have the option of playing their game and basically just like being subjected to their worldview and that global worldview, or you can turn it on its head. And I really admire that you're able to do that, because I would not be able to do that. I wouldn't be able to say I'm a banana peeler because I just wouldn't be able to like I wouldn't be able to, but maybe I should try. I should be a bit more Tamara, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Some people will think you're crazy, but that's okay. Another one I really like is I model, I don't know how you pronounce it, but balaclavas,
Yeah.
this thing that covers your
Yeah.
face.
That covers your face with except
Yeah.
for your eyes.
And
Yeah.
like, I'm a balaclava modeler. And they're like,
That's excellent. I like it. Okay, so I'm gonna
um,
that's the advice that you should take away from this podcast.
but
So can we
I do want to, sorry, I do want to touch upon this part where you said like treat yourself like how you treat your kids. And obviously I
mm,
don't have kids, but I
or
have a
someone you
brother.
love? Yeah.
Yeah, a brother that I love. And I really like this because it's sometimes I feel that I'm being too gentle on myself, but I also know that I'm not being too gentle on my brother. And that's kind
Right.
of another thing that it's like, oh, I wouldn't say these things to him because it's not true. And I just think that's a really nice solution or action that you can
Yeah.
perform
So
when you're
someone that
feeling like an imposter.
yeah, so you need to find someone that you love, but also someone that you would be able to be honest with.
Yeah.
So that's kind of that's the kind of the sweet spot of that you're trying to find. I imagine that when I think about people who listen to this podcast, some people will be super comfortable, or at least moderately comfortable, calling themselves an artist. But I'm specifically thinking about the people who don't feel comfortable calling themselves an artist. What would you say to someone who's listening who makes art, might not feel comfortable calling it art, but they are creative, they're doing things with art supplies, and there is a specific like there's a process and there's a result, and yet they don't necessarily feel like they could call themselves an artist? What would you say to that person who's listening?
Person, what I want to say to you is this: if you have the capacity to analyze where it's coming from. Is it coming from some other external person because they said, well, everybody can do art, but not everybody can be an artist? I heard that from some person's podcast, and it just like ticked me off.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and examine where it's coming from. Is it coming from externally, or is it coming from yourself? Because when it's from yourself, I think it's a little bit easier. It's a fight that you have to fight with yourself, and you have to kind of, if you're not aware where it's coming from, you can't make progress. That's basically what I'm trying to say. And once you become aware of it, you have to reduce it to its barest form. So with me, when I say that I was scared or I'm scared that people are going to find me out, right, that I'm a fraud or whatever, and then they're going to humiliate me and ostracize me, I'm scared of being shamed and losing connection. And when you examine that, and this is going to be very like shawao, but my suggestion to you is sit down and write journal. I am connected because,
Mm-hmm.
or if it's just I'm an artist, I am an artist because.
Mm-hmm. So you're
And
defining
once,
it for yourself.
yeah, and not like you're not just writing I'm an artist 20 times or 30 times or whatever, like affirmations. It's like
Yeah.
I am because, and then you find those reasons for yourself. And a really interesting exercise that I did last year from I don't know his name. His artist name is Truthless.
Mm-hmm.
And he was doing a similar exercise to me, but he was doing it, I think, in a better way, where he was writing, I'm a real artist because, or whatever he was saying, I'm a kind person because, and he
Yeah.
left it. He just wrote it in the morning and he left it. And at the end of the day, he filled in why he was, because it kind of prepared him for the day to act in the way that he said he was, because he
Okay,
wrote
so
because. Does that make
that's
sense?
no, that's such a great. So you're saying like he left it as an unanswered question, and then he allowed time to pass, and he allowed himself to go through a process, which in this case was a day.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, there were more concrete answers rather than trying to answer the question before you've really understood what the answer is, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Um,
And you'll act the way you're
yeah,
prepping yourself to
and
act.
and also it might, because this has been going through my head as we're having this conversation, and it's basically the question of, is it even important to call ourselves an artist? I I think that sometimes we're obsessed with defining things, putting things in boxes, and also sometimes I feel like we're obsessed with claiming things, like as if we're like, marching up somewhere and like putting a flag in the ground or whatever, which has all sorts of like terrible connotations anyway. um so like, are we too obsessed um with fixedness or defining it, and does that stop us maybe from just making the art?
To me, labels are important, and I think that's
Mm.
because of my history. Yeah, and my voice has just gone very raspy. It's because of my history and because where I come from, like geopolitical, all that nonsense. But I think labels are limiting in terms of I am an acrylic artist.
Hmm.
Then okay, so what happens to watercolor? See you bye. So I understand, like in terms of that, how it could be limiting. But the label I like is like polymath or multi-potentialite. And the reason I like that label is because it opens up so many other things. But I think without a label, this is just my experience, it's very difficult for me to be something. I think society is changing, yeah, like we see with gender labels,
Hmm.
these things are, it's not as important to certain people in our generation as it used to be to us or our parents or whatever. Maybe not you and me. I don't know. What are we? Millennials? Are we?
Yes, millennials.
Okay,
Well,
so yeah.
I don't actually know how old you are, but I'm a millennial.
should I say my age here? I am. I was born in the 80s. Um,
Millennial then, yes.
so I think that these labels are becoming less important as people reach a higher state of consciousness. Oh, so
Well,
but
it's basically what you're saying is that labels are not important unless you need your label in order to set yourself apart from, I guess, the ruling class. Like if you are the norm, then and you feel comfortable in that like undefined group, because the norm is usually not defined, because it's invisible because of it. It labels become important when you need to claim something that isn't the norm, and you need to claim it in order to kind of claim your rights of existence. Oh, we're getting like so deep now, but you
no,
know what I
but that
mean.
is, you've said it more eloquently than I ever could. When you and I are together, I'm not going to tell you, Iris, I'm an artist, because we're both artists, But
Yeah.
when I'm in with all my aunties who are like, no baby yet, where's your college degree? Oh, you left your job. Then it's important for me to say I'm an artist.
Right.
Not that my aunties are doing that, because I know they're going to listen to this.
Excellent. But
Yeah,
that's also that's the start, isn't it? It's like when you do something creative, and you're trying to be an artist, it's about getting that first sale. It's about showing it to your mum, your auntie, your brother, your kids, your husband, your spouse, whoever. It's about like sharing it in the first instance with those people. I think that's very valid. It's very necessary even.
yeah, and I'm going to backtrack a little bit.
Please.
My first backtrack is another reason why I really feel this label is important to me
Mm.
is because I've now seen my little cousins and my nieces doing art because I share my art. And I'm like, you can do it, do this. Like they actually phone me for advice, which just thrills me beyond measure.
That's amazing.
And my cousins and my nieces would not be considering this if I was not saying, hey, I'm an artist and clearly I'm not starving, so it's okay,
Mm-hmm.
like you want to do it, you can do it. And I think if I didn't use that label, it would have been just maybe another generation. I'm not saying I'm freeing the generation, but it would have been another generation of kids that just need to be lawyers and doctors. And when they can't, then geez,
Okay,
at least do
yes.
something in the office.
So you're basically saying how important it is to claim and own certain labels in order to give an example that maybe you didn't have. And
Yeah.
like this is a complete segue, but for me that's also really important about talking about race and talking about sexuality, and basically having visible role models who are, loud and proud, or maybe not
Yes.
loud but just proud anyway. And yeah, that's really important to me, and that is definitely why there are certain things in my Instagram profile. For example, it does say I am an artist. It also says that I am Dutch. It also says that I am queer. These things are really important to me for other people to be able to see.
Yes. I hear you. And especially with oh, maybe I'm also getting deep into the segue, especially with, I think my culture is a little bit, I don't know about your culture, but a little bit more closed than yours. Yeah.
Mm.
And the part about being queer and being an artist. I'm not queer, but I know that I've come from a culture that's been close to that. And by me wearing rainbow earrings, I know it's just earrings and it's not my label, but it just, hey, Tamara is cool. Tamara is intelligent. And Tamara is embracing it. So if Tam's doing it, maybe, we
Yeah.
can do it too. And I really have so much of faith and hope for this new generation. Sounds like I'm really like putting my family down. Like they're a bunch of
No, but you're talking about kind of generational and cultural things that just are. Like
yeah,
you might have been lucky to not experience things on a personal level, but you know what things are like, like culturally, globally, kind of generally, and that's kind of what you're saying, that it's important to
yeah.
um but
But
can we get let's
can we
get
get
back.
back?
Yeah, let's get back, because the thing is, this is really interesting, but we're no longer talking about art. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so
Um,
we can we talk a little bit about limiting beliefs and the things that we tell ourselves, and yeah, can we talk about that?
okay, yeah, we can. Can I instead ask you a question because I feel
Yeah.
like I'm the one answering questions, and I don't know. Let's formulate the question first. My question to you, Iris, is how would you go about tackling your limiting belief if you were a brand new artist? And I guess it's very similar to the question you asked me,
Sure.
but um, I don't feel, I just have my experience, and I feel as a teacher, you might have the experience of yourself and other students that
Mm-hmm.
were new artists. So, yeah, that's why I'm asking you this question.
I find it really interesting that my limiting beliefs are still with me. I started doing art fairly seriously probably in 2013 or something, 2014. I've been making art very regularly since then. I have been teaching regularly since then. And I still have all these very annoying limiting beliefs. And like sometimes I feel like I'm getting more rather than less. Like it's like, isn't it supposed to get easier? I don't know. I think it's that I'm open to them. I'm not trying to shut them down. I'm not trying to mantra my way out of the things that I think and the difficulties that I have. So, and I feel lucky that I can. Um, it's kind of like the privilege of being able to feel like shit in a way. I don't know. I think I'm gonna claim it as a superpower rather than as something to feel badly about. Like ask me tomorrow and I might feel bad about it, but who knows. But yeah, so like my struggle really is the fact that I don't have a concrete, tried and tested, this works, miracle cure strategy for battling my limiting beliefs. And it's like what you said before about like whether you call yourself or think of yourself as a real artist changes from day to day depending on how you feel. And that's the same thing with my limiting beliefs. I feel like, oh, I'm not a real artist, I'm not, I'm not successful enough, my art isn't good enough, I'm not making enough, as in producing enough art. All of these thoughts occur to me at one point or another, but they don't necessarily occur to me every single minute of every single day, all of them at the same time. It's just that sometimes one of them gets triggered more, and other times, all of these beliefs are, blissfully quiet and I can just create. To me, limiting beliefs is not something at this point in time that I feel like I can get rid of. It's just something that I need to live with, and I need to keep showing up and keep making art and keep teaching in spite of these beliefs, rather than, oh, I'm going to get rid of them first and then I'll be able to like make art the way I want to and be successful and be a teacher and like make YouTube videos or whatever. It's about living with it, which sucks. It sucks. I wish it wasn't like that.
This if then kind of complex, like once I do that, then I can do that, like that never
Yeah.
works. Just you, I think, taught me
It
that you
doesn't, but
will
it's so
never be ready, so
it's so
just do it.
tempting though. It's so tempting to believe that that is the key.
Yeah, I think it's such a complex subject, because it's you're trying to protect yourself, and also the world tells you you need to have this and this done by then.
Mm,
But I really learned that from you. You're never going to be ready, and you're never going to be perfect. So why try to be a perfectionist? I
yeah.
think I'm lucky in my thinking. As an example, today my partner's writing a driver's test. I hope I'm not jinxing it now, and he's really stressed out. And I'm like, but why are you stressed out? Like, you're gonna like die anyway. So if you die now, whatever, it's still the same thing. Like, that's my thinking a lot of the time. If I'm worried, well, whether I worry or not, it's not going to change it. So what's the point of worrying? And I do stop worrying. And it's problematic, but it's also good. The problem is sometimes I don't allow myself to sit and feel things, and you know that quite well. And something I need to learn. But other times I need to move forward. And sometimes it is a little bit a part of me that's, I don't know, I don't want to say neurotic, but I think that's the wrong word. So when you say you can't get rid of your limiting beliefs, like, I have a strong belief that I can get rid of my limiting beliefs. And maybe I'm wrong, but maybe it's actually just different for different people. Um, this part about education, where I used to feel I needed to be educated in order to do anything, that really isn't a problem for me anymore. And that's a limiting belief I had to work through and get rid of. So, I mean, I don't know. It might come back next week. Who knows? Touch wood.
The things that I struggle with, they change. But because there's always, if you are a human and you're growing and you keep coming up against like your comfort zones, you are going to have struggles. Like, it's only if you never change and never challenge yourself that you're not going to come up against anything challenging. So, the fact that you have challenges or struggles or limiting beliefs to grapple with is good in a way, and it means that you're growing as a person. And then next year you might have like done and dusted that one thing that you used to really struggle with, but there'll be something else because you're trying to keep bettering yourself and getting further along your own journey of the things that you want to do and the things you want to achieve, and how you want to be.
Yeah, 100%. If you're growing, your beliefs should change and grow with you. Yeah,
Yeah.
mine used to be I'm not paid. Now it's everybody thinks I'm hilarious when I'm actually not. And these people are coming here for the clown, but they're actually going to see a sad clown. So that's changed with me. I thought having the success of having like done a formal lesson and all of these people enjoying it would have been enough for me. But with that success came something else. And that's growth, because I would have not felt that if I didn't go through that other
Yeah. And also
limiting belief.
sometimes, don't we sometimes feel as if like there is a destination, and the more I do things, I realize there are no destinations. You just like, you get to somewhere that you want to go, but then, if that is the destination, then you'd be dead. So as
Yeah.
long as you are still alive, there is still more of a path to walk down, and more of a journey to have, whichever whatever you choose to do with it.
Yeah, I do think it's satisfying though, to get to that destination. But I think you always have to have the next. I'm using a mixed metaphor here, but the next game to play. You clock
Yeah.
Witcher, and then the next game needs to be Kingdom Come. So
Yes,
like,
yes,
that's
exactly.
kind of, it is satisfying. But yeah, in this art thing, I don't know if there is a destination, because I really did think, oh, when I teach my first lesson, like then I'm going to be
Yeah.
okay. And now I was editing a vlog yesterday, which I'm not going to post, by the way, long story. But
No, please post it, because I am like your number one fan and I need it.
Iris, it is just like so much of whinging and moaning. Like, it's not that I don't want people, it's like repetitive word vomit, like, oh, I have creative block. I have creative block. It's just like I want to go inside the screen and just shake myself.
But have
But
you
that's,
watched my vlogs? This is what my vlogs are.
yeah, but it's different when it's you, because you're
Yes.
cool.
No, no, no. But that's a good point though, because it always feels different when it is yourself. It's like at least I have so much more capacity for other people to be the way they are, and I don't have as much room for myself. Like, so if I am whinging in my vlog, I'm like, oh my god, I'm the worst, I can't share this, people are going to think I'm terrible. But if you have a vlog in which you're whinging, I probably wouldn't even clock it as whinging at all. I'd be like, oh wow, she's being so truthful, and like she's really sharing how she feels, and gosh, and then she put a fart noise at the end, and I wish I could be more like that. So, different yardsticks for different people who are not me, basically.
Okay, Iris, I will edit it and I will put what a fart I am on the internet. Uh, yeah, but what I want to say is, like, when you complain, it kind of seems more legitimate, because I feel that you have, besides a family, you have a career, and you're dealing and talking to more people. And again, this is a level of imposter syndrome, yeah?
It is, right? Because
Um,
I think to myself, "Oh my god, like I'm so not good enough, and like not successful enough, and all of that stuff." So, and then whilst I am thinking these thoughts, I also know that people would look at me and think, "Oh wow, gosh, she's quite successful. Like she's teaching on life books, she's doing this and that." And it's so interesting that how people perceive us is not necessarily how we feel.
yeah. What's this corny saying, man? I wish I could see you through my eye.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, I know the one you mean. Like
English.
it sounds really romantic. It's like one of those romantic movie things.
Yeah,
So,
if you could see yourself through my eyes or something like
yeah.
that. And I'm just like, no, but you have bad eyesight, so
I kind of feel like we've oh no, okay, so that was your dog saying this concludes this topic. That was like the full stop at the end of it. So, cue the musical interlude. So we're coming up to the end of this podcast, and before we do our little summing up and telling you all the salient points of this podcast, I wanted to just have a little bit of a let's have a 1 minute of lighthearted fun instead of talking about like heavy shit. And I just wanted to ask you, Tamara, what are you looking forward to?
ooh. Coincidence? I think not. I am looking forward to digging into this book because I stopped myself because I knew that we were having this podcast thing today and I felt like I needed to be more articulate and eloquent and stress. But
okay, and tell us what this book is because people can't see what...
Oh,
They're listening with their ears.
I'm sorry, I forgot. It's called What It Is, and it's by Linda Barry. And Michelle Johnson, I don't know, I shouldn't say people's names probably, but she's one of your Patreons, I think.
Oh, yes, of course, yes.
Yeah, Nutty Scrapper, and I follow her on Instagram. She's like so cool. And she suggested this book, or she posted it on, and it's like written in a comic style, and everything is like collage, and it's just, I don't know what it is yet, but I'm so excited about it. So yeah, maybe the next time we speak, I will tell you one good thing about this book or two.
Okay, cool.
And yourself, Iris, what's really getting you stoked?
I am super stoked, that's not a word I use, about my birthday. It's my birthday tomorrow, so I am very, very excited. My birthday is a prime number, 37, which is another cause for excitement. The next prime number birthday that I will have, I think, is 41. So, I've still got a few, I'm just a geek, and stuff like that amuses me.
Iris in her prime.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, in my prime. So that's what I'm excited about.
Can I say happy birthday, all the best. I wish you as many more years as you want on this earth. And I wish that you eventually become a real artist.
I wish the same for you. And I wish the same for everybody who is listening. May we all become real artists and not due to what other people think, but due to what we ourselves think about ourselves. So yes, thank you very much for listening to Not a Real Artist, a podcast by Iris Fritschi-Cussens and
Tamara Sagathevan.
I'm going to also learn to say your last name. Before we get into the key takeaways, can I just say thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it, please could you do all the things that people ask you to do when you listen to their podcasts, like, subscribe to them, write a review, share them with your friends and your auntie and your grandmother. And we would really be very grateful. And now let me sum up the key takeaways. Takeaway number 1. Feeling like an artist isn't necessarily a static thing. Allow for fluidity, change, and growth. Number 2. The value of what you do is separate from the money you generate with it. Number 3. Instead of asking or answering the question, what do you do? Ask, where does your life force go? Number 4. Labels become important when you need to claim something that is outside the norm and when you want to be a role model for others. Number 5. Keep showing up and making art in spite of your limiting beliefs. Number 6. If you're growing, your beliefs should grow and change with you. Number 7. How people perceive us isn't necessarily how we feel inside. And if you're looking for a practical assignment, start with the phrase, I am an artist because. Write this down several times and fill in your own because. To take it to the next level, write it down in the morning, spend your day with the question, and then write down the answers at the end of the day. Thank you so much for listening to this first episode. We really hope you enjoyed it. We hope you will join us again for the next episode of Not a Real Artist, titled Is Inspiration a Myth?, in which Tamara and I will talk all about inspiration, slumps, idea paralysis, and other relatable topics.